Disclaimer, we'd like to note before the start of this interview that the opinions about to be expressed by the guest on tonight's Gettin Salty Experience podcast are that of the guest and do not directly or necessarily reflect the views of the host of the Gettin Salty Experience podcast.
Put the fucking fire out!
You're listening to the Gettin Salty Experience podcast.
Hello!
I'm not as loud. I'm not as voice.
I was going to say, Mike, let's go. Hello!
My pipes cannot reach the same volume, but ladies
Yes,
and
they
gentlemen,
can. Give a little squeeze.
welcome. Welcome to episode 239 of the Gettin Salty Experience. Unfortunately, Kevin is not feeling too well today. His voice gave out on him, so he tapped me to substitute co-host tonight, and I'm no Kevin Kubler, but I'll do my best. We got a great show on tap, and as always, along for the ride, Lou Refrano and Gonzo on the ones and twos. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
What's up, Mikey Kid? You ready to go? You got the suit on? I like it.
Yeah.
Always. We actually had our show in Long Island Expo, and it's 3 days. We met a lot of good people out there, but you're doing a lot of talking and a lot of pictures and a lot of schmoozing. Maybe Coobs is signing a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? He likes that stuff. But yesterday he could barely talk, like legitly, he could not talk. And then this morning I talked to him this afternoon, and he's like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to go. Like he's horrible. So I'm like, yeah, we talked to Mike. Mike will zip right in there. It's better looking anyway. It's better to look at him, right, Guns? It's like we got to look at that crooked nose the whole time and everything on Kubler. It's no good.
Yeah, because he's like right up in the camera. He's like, he doesn't.
He's always got like the medium shirt on. Like, I want to see a nice suit. Yeah, I want to see it. It's nice.
That's he's probably MFing us right now. I'm surprised.
It's coming. It's coming in. There's no doubt he's watching.
Well, he's got to pop up in the chat at some point.
Either that or he's just going to show his face on the show.
He might, but feel better, my friend.
Yeah, don't feel better. We're good. I'm just kidding. Just kidding, Kev. I love you, buddy.
It's the inside voice again, Guns. Nice. I like it.
Stay away from the light.
Stay away from
the light, little buddy. Yeah.
We can just give it to him now.
Oh, shit.
Shit, where we at? So what do we got? All right, well, anything else exciting? Any regulars at the show this weekend?
Oh, yeah. Who was there? I mean, everybody was there. Ronzoni was there.
Well, that is true.
Fat Daddy Ray was there. I mean, everybody was there. It was Mikey Milner was there. It was a lot of fun. The guys were all hanging out, partaking, as they might say.
Allegedly, perhaps, could have happened.
So, it was a good time. It was good.
Good.
A lot of people there.
Yeah, huh? I was this close to wanting to make it up there, but I said maybe not. Maybe next time.
I saw some guys from a lot of FDNY guys, just our volunteers in Long Island and stuff like that. So they all make their way to the shows. There's some classes going on. A few guys were teaching, so it was good.
All right. Well, at least we had a good time. You guys had a good time, rather.
That worked out like it did.
Yeah. All right. Well,
we went to dinner with Vince from Arbor Tough.
Nice. Oh, did he come off? Yeah. All right. Nice. Does he like the new commercial? Is he happy with it? Did he say?
He does. I told him we got to cut it down in half. I'm like, how did you send a minute commercial? Like the price is going up. That's what I told him.
The brick is going up.
He was panicking.
So tell him the tariff. We're gonna drive out the tariff.
I see another thing on a tariff. My God, please, Christmas.
God. Now it's changed. But anyway,
yeah.
Now it's changed. Right? Like, come on, man. So whatever. Anyway, all right. So you want to
Which commercials we got?
Well, we have FRC and we have Armor Tough. Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do Armor Tough first, and then we'll do the one after that.
All right. Well, speaking of Vince, here we go.
Need a new floor for your fire station? Choose an Armor Tough interlocking flooring system to cover your aging, stained, cracked concrete or epoxy floor. Around for nearly 20 years and proven to be the best choice in renovating your station floors, covering nearly 600 floors across the country, Armor Tough is proudly made in America and comes with a lifetime warranty with floors that are usually installed in 1 or 2 days, depending on the size of your station, and no disruption in the process to your station's operations. Our system is guaranteed from chipping, cracking, peeling, breaking, or staining. The tiles are stain resistant and impervious to chemicals or volatiles that are used in the fire service. If you damage one tile, you can lift and replace without anyone knowing. And once it's installed, your floor would be easy to clean with just soap and water. It's not only for apparatus rooms. You can install an Armor Tough floor in virtually any room and choose from the hundreds of colors from the Designer Series or, if you like, from the Utility Series floor coverings. Are you in need of gear racks, an extractor, or gear dryers? Install an Armor Tough floor in your apparatus bay and take full advantage of a deep discount, saving you thousands of dollars on any of the Grove products line. Why install a breakable epoxy floor that'll need replacing in 5 to 10 years when you could have a floor that will last a lifetime? The Armor Tough flooring system is half the price of epoxy and will last a lifetime without issue, more importantly. Join the hundreds of career and volunteer departments nationwide who have chosen an Armor Tough interlocking tile floor. Call Vince today for a no-obligation quote at 908-917-7697.
I forgot to mention Mrs. Procaccini's husband was there too.
Hi, Rob.
He's hitting me up. I'm trying there, buddy. I'm trying to keep it tight. I almost went no gel. I almost changed everything, but nobody wants to see
don't do that.
White head of hair. I mean, it's really white. It's changed in the last year. So, but anyway, all right, here we go. You guys ready for the next one?
Yep.
All right, here we go.
The First Responders Center for Excellence is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to protecting the lives and livelihoods of first responders. Their education and research initiatives aim to bring greater awareness and understanding to the challenges to the health, safety, and well-being of firefighters, EMS personnel, and other first responders, too. They are an affiliate of the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation. Okay, I have been tasked with the health and safety tip tonight. Obviously, not a firefighter, so not my place to give that sort of advice. Tonight's a little bit different. If we can pull up the photo, please.
Absolutely.
This is something that is not necessarily exclusively related to firefighting, but it applies to us all, no matter what profession you're involved in. So if we have a photo of
it ties right in.
Yep, this is firefighter Thomas Dunn, retired. He worked in Engine 234, and I have the following sad information from Chief Vincent Dunn, of whom was Thomas Dunn's uncle. Quote, "My nephew Thomas Dunn, Engine 234, survived both tower collapses on 9/11, spent months down in the pile searching for victims. Since then, suffered years with asthma, breathing problems, and recurring scalp infections caused by fumes and soot of the smoldering pile rubble. He took his own life yesterday at 3 p.m., a gunshot to his head. Never forget," end quote from Chief Dunn. First of all, our condolences to the Dunn family on this terrible loss. And secondly, mental health, and yes, mental health. We all have our struggles. We all have our burdens, and sometimes it's easier said than done to share them. But in today's day and age where there's more of a spotlight on this sort of a thing, it's important to share it. We can't shoulder our load alone. We all need one another.
Well done, Michael.
Well done, Michael. So don't hesitate.
And when I saw that today, somebody had posted it up early, and my first thought was, "Holy mackerel, that guy's really young to have." I was thinking cancer or something because it said 9/11. And then when Chief Dunn posted on the fan page that he had committed suicide, then it was just like, holy mackerel. And we talk about that pretty much almost every show. Whenever we do that commercial, Coobs is really. That's his thing. You know what I mean? He talks about that all the time. And unfortunately, I guess, he felt like he was at the end of the rope.
It's our job to keep the conversation going and letting everybody know that it's okay to I hate it almost sounds getting very common.
Yeah,
it's okay not to be okay, but, it's the outreach that we have. And, obviously, this one hits closer to home for some of us, but don't be afraid. Get out there, have that conversation.
We all
said, even if it's a work colleague, my friend, it helps me, and I did the same thing. So it helped me.
We all suffer. What we don't want to do is suffer in silence.
That's 100% right. So,
all right, let's get fun.
All right. So,
you ready, guys?
I am 100%. I think Andy's ready. He's sitting there patiently waiting. He's like,
Is he sleeping?
No, he's not. He's there. Get ready, Andy. Come on, buddy. Get ready, Cap. I can see you over there.
All right. Coming to the stage, author and FDNY Captain Andy Serra.
How's it going, guys?
Say that, fella.
Thanks for having me.
You weren't sleeping back there. Maybe you were reading a couple of them books you got back there. Holy moly, guacamole.
Not confirm or deny dozing off now.
You. Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm just not
Oh, you had
We
it.
got
You had
serious
it.
for a second. I was.
Yeah, I got you.
It was terrible news. I agree with you. When I saw that today, it was very shocking and sad.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
I mean, it's almost every day there's some type of funeral. I mean, and you get the messages, right? You get the UFOA sends emails every day. There's one or two related to 9/11 or something else. Always.
Never a week goes by without one, right?
Yeah. Oh no, it seems like it's all the time.
Yeah, that's the sad fact. Is everywhere you turn, it's becoming very customary, unfortunately. That you.
Gons, I got shit to do, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all do.
Same top of your health.
Oh yeah.
You ain't lying. I mean,
He ain't lying.
Not to make a joke out of it, but yeah.
No, listen, absolutely. So before we get into your career, Cap, and of course we'll go chronologically.
Oh, let's get patriotic.
Yes, we have to do the pledge.
Yep.
Coobs.
Yes. Hold on.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes.
Amen.
Apologies for forgetting about that. Now,
All right, Coobs.
Hoops Cologne tonight. Before we get into anything involving your career, first, take me through, and this is a two-pronged question. A, where you grew up, and B, did you have any inclinations early on you wanted to go into civil service?
Well, I grew up on Staten Island, and my dad was a truck driver. So, I grew up going on the truck with him. It's all I wanted to do as a kid. I think be on the truck with my dad. But my mom's father was a firefighter. He retired when I was very young when he retired. But my mom always talked fondly of her dad being a fireman and with the fire department, and it was really her keeping on top of me and my brothers. She was very accepting. Whatever we wanted to do in life, she would have supported. But she had one rule: you have to take the tests. You can turn 17, 18, whatever test they're given.
Same thing. Must be the Italian thing.
Yeah.
Italian thing, maybe that era of thing, that generation.
My mom was Irish, so
all right.
She had a hard and fast rule. You're taking the test. You could say no when they call you, but
that's it. Exactly. You could always turn it down.
A physical class action lawsuit. A few, 6 years later, I got the call.
So getting on in August of 1998, interesting time, of course. The FDNY is changing. This is right after the squads went into effect. Special Operations Command has been revamped. City's in a good spot. It's in the middle of a renaissance. So getting down to Proby School.
I can't.
It's like, I just want to sit there like I'm praying.
I've never heard Coobs use the word renaissance in my life. 40 years, I've never heard him say that. Ever.
Smart.
Smart, Mikey. Go ahead, Mikey. I love you. Go ahead.
Getting down to the Rock. Tell me about, well, A, the first day, and B, what sticks out from those 3 months.
It's probably one of those things that, you hated doing it at the time, but now you look back and love it. It's the carpool in the morning, meeting first thing in the morning. We all met by on the Staten Island side of the Verrazano Bridge. There's a big giant monument there. We used to drive there, meet and all get in each other's cars and carpool up to the Rock, and just a lot of laughs in the car with a bunch of guys that, all in the same boat. I think that test in particular, because there was a lawsuit and a hiring freeze and stuff. By the time they got to us, I did the math. I think when I was there, it was 150 guys in the Proby class. It was me and one other guy were the only two in the whole class that were under 30 years old. I was 25 at the time. I was like the youngest you could be because I had just been old enough to take the test. So it was an older class, a lot of guys who, blue collar, swung hammers their whole lives, waited, whatever they were doing, even if a stockbroker, whatever they were doing, they waited for this job for a long time, So everyone was pretty motivated. I think we started on day one with 152 and we graduated 151. And that was because one guy left on day two because he had been in Con Ed and they got a raise and he went back to Con Ed. But nobody quit during Proby School, So it was a good class. It was, I think we had, we had fun now looking back,
Absolutely.
Cap, did you have any family on the job? I don't know if we covered that or not prior to.
Like I said, my grandfather retired, when I was quite young, but down the road, my brother got on the job a couple years after I did. The three of us, 3 boys, we all took the test. Me and my youngest brother, Rob, got on the job.
Did your grandfather ever talk about it? Do you remember talking to him about it?
He was pretty reserved about it, here and there, a few stories, He had a pretty interesting career. It was different back then, obviously. He graduated, they didn't really have an academy, whatever the training they had at the time. He said Welfare Island, they did some training. Then they assigned him to a division and they floated. And then the orders came out and he got assigned to a fireboat. Right out of COVID. On the Lower East Side. I don't even know if they were called marine companies back then, whatever they were called, but he got assigned to a fireboat down.
No shit.
And they were part of Battalion 4, he said, on the Lower East Side. They docked in Lower Manhattan, and they knew the guard. It was like in a docking thing, and they knew the guard at the front gate. So if the battalion chief came by for an inspection, the guard would telephone them and say, the chief's, and it would take the chief like 5 minutes to drive. And so they had a heads up when the chief was coming, He did that for like a year or two, he said, and then he said, no, I want to,
Oh, he did get out of there. All right. Yeah.
Then he transferred out of there. He went to, it was before the Verrazano Bridge, so I guess getting on the Staten Island side was a big deal. And he ended up, he went to 81 truck on Staten Island. He did about 20 years there.
Nice. So fast forward to November of 1998, you come out of Proby School, your first assignment, the Happy Hookers 131 truck in Red Hook, Brooklyn. So
this is a family show.
Yeah.
Name the company. Going to a Brooklyn company off the rip, one of the busier boroughs of the 5, of course, in New York City, especially at that time. Tell me about, I don't know how long you were there. I know you were on a rotation a little while after that, but tell me how much time you spent there and the key lessons you learned early on from your senior guys.
Well, I went there out of Proby School. I did my first year on the job there and got off probation before we went out on rotation.
Holy mackerel.
15.
It was,
you have a tough paper out or something? Look at you. Holy shit. You were a baby.
Get your news day. Just kidding.
It was, it was a very senior house. Look
at this guy.
I didn't think anything of it because I didn't know any better, but Jimmy Perkins in the engine had, I think, 42 years on the job.
Wow.
He was a senior man on the job. He got on the job. He was the Proby class before my grandfather's Proby class.
So wow. That's freaking crazy.
He saw the neighborhood come full circle. He got there and they had 2 rigs, a hose wagon and a pumper. And they were doing about 500 runs a year, he said, when he got there. Because it was before the war years, and then he was there through the war years and they were doing 5,000 or 6,000 runs a year by then. Wow. And then by the time I got,
BQE wouldn't even have been there probably at that time, right? The BQE probably wasn't even there because they're right under the highway.
Yeah, they were probably building it at the time, and the war years, and then the neighborhood, down by Columbia Street, or the tenements and all, they burned, and then the neighborhood slowed down a little bit afterwards, but so it was about probably a middle of the road house, runs and workers wise when I got there. But so the old timers like that saw it go full circle. There was a good number of guys in the truck that had over 20 years when I got there.
Truck work in a place like Brooklyn is a sweet spot few can ever achieve in their careers, let alone, of course, a department like the FDNY. So what I'll ask you is, as far as boxes go, and again, I don't know how long you were there, tell me about the fires that stick out and even just the emergencies where you found yourself saying afterwards, holy crap, that was really something.
Yeah, when you're young and brand new, you never think you're busy enough. I look back now, and especially when I was a Proby, even I caught a good amount of work. That neighborhood has a little bit of everything. There's other than private dwellings, it has everything else. It has projects, it has brownstones and row frames, it has tenements, it has factories and warehouses, and I really caught a little bit of everything that whole time there. I remember, my first fire was in a brownstone building up in Park Slope, right by 220 and 122, Louis. We were telling that story before we second due to them. I'd been there like a month, hadn't caught anything. Then you think, oh, it's never going to happen. You get the jitters. And then the senior guy in the truck, Gary Kaki, he said, go lay down. It was like 1 a.m. He says, go lay down. It'll happen when it happens. And next thing you know, it's like 6 a.m. The tones are going off, and, fire's blowing out 2 windows on the first floor.
The tones dropped.
Those areas over there, like we were talking about in the pre-show. Again, when I got promoted, I was in the 11th division in Brooklyn, and I say it all the time. 131, like when you talk about busy trucks, you think of Brooklyn, it's always 111. It's the same companies, 120, right, or 103, whatever. But one of my first vacations I did was in 131, and I absolutely love the guys there. Like I went to a couple little jobs, nothing crazy, and then right down the road, I worked in 204 engine, which they end up closing. But again, you wouldn't even know that thing was like it was on like a little block that kids were playing in the street. Like it was an incredible, guys were great there. And the same thing with 220, 122. I told you about the story with the fruit, and I forgot my wallet, and the guys took care of me like I was like family without even thinking about it.
Definitely a great introduction to the fire department. The house was great. I had great officers. My first captain was Marty Ford, and Tommy Coleman was my lieutenant, and I learned a lot from them. The senior men all took me under their wing. Had some very senior guys over 20 years, war years guys like Jake Sexton and Gary Kaki, and and then even like the middle of the road guys that just drilled you the every tour, made sure you're doing the right thing. The guys that stick out in my memory that even today, it's like Mike Jetsky or Jerry Sweeney. Those guys, they just they really make sure they stayed on top of you and taught you the right way. And have a
it is funny that you think about the first guys that you meet. If you've never been in the fire department, obviously, I was never going to firehouses. I had nobody, same as you. And those guys that you meet for the first time, they really do, like embed themselves, like make a mark for you, like to look back, like when you look back through your career. Now you've been in 231, you've been in Squad 1, you've been in all these places. And yet, even for myself too, looking back, like 117, there's some guys there that really put me on the path, like with certain things that I still think about now. Like I say, wow, and I had some really good jobs. Like again, like when I was in 117, similar to you, like it sticks out to me even after all that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and even bouncing around as a covering officer, you really, there's great people everywhere. Really dedicated, talented people in everywhere, every part of the city.
That is true. Absolutely.
And there's knuckleheads everywhere, but
same circus, different clowns, right?
So no one has a monopoly on either.
Yeah, no doubt.
Not to jump ahead, because I don't want to gloss over your rotation. We have yet to get to Squad 1 as well. But given what would come later in your career, becoming an officer in 2004, were these the guys that inspired you to start studying, or did you have that in your mind already when you got on?
I don't think, definitely like that early on in 131, I think I wasn't thinking studying at that time. I don't think. I think I maybe a little bit later that came because they had just given a lieutenant's test, I think, in 97. So I knew I had a few years to, it wasn't like anything was imminent. And, I was just happy learning the job and meeting new people and having fun.
New people.
It wasn't an initial thought. And like I said, the truck, there were guys that got promoted out of there, but a lot of guys just stayed there forever, for 20 something years, So it's
fucking Patty Lee is always fun.
Pew, pew. It's like this. Pew.
Mike Giesecke's in the chat. Says Andy was a great probie. I knew he would have a great career. So Mike Giesecke's, if I'm pronouncing that right, apologies if I'm not.
Mike Jeske, yeah.
Mike Jeske, sorry.
Like I said, he was one of the middle management guys when I got there, and the guys that just always doing something, always taking care of something, always looking out for the young guys and teaching them. So he's definitely a big positive influence.
Mm-hmm. Let's peel it back. Oh, sorry about that. Let's peel it back to that rotation. 231, 155, night and day. 231, you go to Watkins Street, you're still in Brooklyn, so not too unfamiliar given your time in 131 truck. 155, Staten Island, so a completely different way of doing things out there. It fluctuates borough to borough. So tell me about changing the mentality from where you were in Brooklyn, and that's where you spent the early portion of your career, to how they did things in Staten Island and what that experience taught you.
Yeah, that was completely the opposite of like Red Hook and Brooklyn with as far as building types. 155, it's a busy firehouse, 155 and 78. And
is that the hot corner?
The hot corner, yeah.
Nice.
They have projects right in their immediate area, like a block away. They have a project development, but then everything else they respond to is pretty much private dwellings and Queen Anne's. And I caught some good work there. I think 2 or 3 times in the time I was there, and we rolled up on like Queen Anne's fully involved by ourselves, us in the truck for like 10 minutes because the second due companies are coming from so far away, you know? So it was a good learning experience. And the guys there knew what they were doing. They, you know, you think I had just, my second stop was in 231. So you think, all right, I think I got a handle on engine work and this and that. And then I remember a good job I caught with 155. I had the control and I couldn't get the cap off the hydrant. It was just seized on, rusted on. And in my mind, I was, you know, I guess in Brooklyn, most of the caps were missing, but, you know, but anyway, I couldn't get it off. And, you know, I didn't have that much experience to know, you know, I turned to the chauffeur, this guy, Dougie Spano. He was one of the chauffeurs in 155. I said, Doug, I think we need a 1070. And, you know, I'll watch my language on the air here. You know, his idea of a 1070, you know, he told me where to stick it, you know. he opened the compartment. He takes the maul out.
Yeah.
And like, you know, like a baseball player, he goes, get out of my way. And he swings the maul and hits, you know, the head of the maul dead onto the nut of the 4.5
cap. Yeah.
Cap. And as soon as he does it, I see like the rust flakes fall out of the threads. And he goes, open it now. And I put the wrench on it. It opened right up. We hooked up and, you know, the fire went out. You know, it's like no matter where you worked, how busy it was, or what you think you know, there's always someone who knows more or what experience you can learn from, you know, all over the city. You know, and that was another great place to work too.
Yeah.
How long were you in 231 for? Not to gloss over that.
A little over a year. It's weird. The rotation when they started, if you remember, there's a fire I had.
There's Wetzel.
There's Danny Wetzel. Yeah. Timmy Reardon was the boss there, and Danny Dunleavy was with me. It was my second stop on rotation. Then they changed the dates. It used to be October to October, and then they made it January to January. So I ended up being in 231 for like 15 months or something like that on my second stop. So I was, you know, having fun there. I didn't mind.
Did you already kind of, like, I know when guys did the rotation, you know, from having a few guys on, did you kind of already feel like you gravitated to you're going to go back there at some point, or you were saying I was going back to 131? Like,
you know, it's one of those weird things. And coming from 131, where I loved it, I loved the guys there, you know, and then I got to 231 and saw, you know, another great house, another great group of guys, and the tradition there through the war years, you know, I loved it there too, you know. So you kind of, your heart's torn, you know. It's like you're going back to company functions and in 131, meeting those guys, and you know. So, you know, time went by. It's, you know, the way it worked out, the rotation ended. I went to 155. And then I, as much as I loved it in 131, I just felt like, I think for my career, you know, I think being as busy as I could at the moment would it be beneficial. So I actually wanted to go back to 231. And then my officers at 131 were great. You know, they were very supportive, Captain Ford and Tommy Coleman, and they helped me. I put in a paper and all, but then an order came, it didn't happen. And then 9/11 happened. And right in September of 01. And after that, I was in 131 and we lost, you know, we took a big hit on 9/11 and, you know, I wasn't going to leave then, you know, we were with the guys, we had guys missing, we had funerals to plan, families to take care of. So then I knew, you know, if I was going to stay in with, you know, my company and my house there with them. And it wasn't until a few months later, Lieutenant Tommy Coleman pulled me in the office and he said, you know, I know you talked in the past about, you know, being as busy as possible. He goes, he showed me I guess an order that came out or something that SOC was looking for volunteers at the time. Of course, you know, they took such a big hit on 9/11 and, you know, I thought maybe it was too soon to leave after 9/11. We had so much going on still at the firehouse. This was maybe December of 01. And he said, no, you know, this is, you know, good for your career. And he helped me a lot, Tommy Coleman. And actually Marty Ford too. He called the captain of Squad 1 at the time. And I got an interview up there. And in January of 01, I went to Squad 1.
So, you know, this is at a time when of the 97 Special Operations Command deaths that happened on 9/11 when the towers collapsed, quite a few of them were from Squad 1. Squad 1 was decimated on that day. So getting there, it's already hard to go to a squad company or a rescue company and that does that type of work because it's not an easy transition as it is. With this as the backdrop, it's 10 times harder, and it's pedal to the metal because there's a heightened state of alert. So it's quite literally trial by fire being in a company like that during a time like this. Tell me about those early months of just trying to keep your head on straight while your world is still spinning from what happened to your previous company, and trying to mesh with guys who, in their own way, are grieving their guys'
Mike.
loss. Thank you.
Yeah, it's such a unique. It's hard to explain that whole time. I'm sure you guys agree. Like, and there's so many. There's a million stories on this job, right? If there's something terrible happens and somebody gets killed, and then the new guy comes and takes his locker, or But now you multiply that by, in Squad 1's case, they lost 12 guys on 9/11. Literally half the company. So in a single house, so half the firehouse, really. And even the guys coming there, most of them were coming from houses that lost guys. So everyone's like in this very, unprecedented situation where, and there were moments for sure where it was, I guess, hard or surreal, to be knowing that you're stepping into someone else's, someone who's died, following in their footsteps and all, but it's also like, it was such a huge loss and such an unprecedented situation. And there was no time almost with half the company gone. They had to work so hard to rebuild so quickly that there really wasn't a lot of time to dwell on it. It's like, we're getting a bunch of new guys in, and we're going to work hard. We're going to train them, and
Andy, I was thinking about that too. Like when you went there in January, that's still, to me, that whole, like, I don't know, like for everybody, it was like 8 months, 7, 8 months. Like, it's a blur, right? I mean, you guys we were going down, like, still on the rotation, like a squad or a rescue was going down every night or every, in the morning, at night. I forget what it was, but we were constantly still going down there all the time, right, and looking and doing all that. And like I'm sure a squad was doing, and then you still were probably going to 131's stuff if if they had a mass or something.
Funerals,
memorials. If they didn't find somebody and then they find them, then you got to go to the funeral again. And it was just, it's all a blur.
Now a whole new, Squad 1 had a couple before January, but I think the most of them were after January, their funerals and memorials. So it was just,
and then you got to learn all the, you're trying to jump in and learn, high angle, and you're trying to learn collapse, and you're trying to learn confined space and shit you never did, on top of going to fires and everything, and
now counterterrorism too.
While your brain is half not concentrating, for the most part, you know what I mean? It was a weird time, man, like you said. So all those guys that came to 288, they did a lot of great things to help prop up the company, because it allowed the guys who were there to maybe take their mind off of all the other crap to focus on teaching these guys stuff, you know what I mean?
And I noticed that in Squad 1, there were, there was with 12 families to take care of, some guys in the firehouse they had their hands full with that, and then other guys, everyone pitched in on everything, of course, but other guys were more focused on let's train the new guys, or I guess like any other firehouse, everyone.
It was a good distraction, right? It was a good distraction from all of the loss and pain. Like, to have guys that were motivated to be there, and, teaching those guys and watching guys, even for myself, I was only there until June of 2002. I got promoted, but even those 6 months, like some of the guys, I think John McCoy, Bones, I call him Bones. He's been there. He was one of the first guys that came, and he's a senior guy there now still. I think he's getting out pretty soon, but yeah. He, I think about going to, teaching him and going to fires and stuff like that. He won the Gansey medal, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? I felt like he was my son, like it was my father, like I was a father, figure to him, So, just what you're saying, you guys were important for the company to be a distraction in a good way. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, for sure.
One thing, a couple questions as it pertains to Squad 1. You spent a couple of years there. The dust, figuratively, and there's a great photo after a job, I'm assuming, dust figuratively and literally settles in the spring of 2002 when the last beam is removed And slowly but surely, emergency agencies across the city start to get back into the normal day-to-day of things. Was there a point in time, even though you weren't there too long, where you finally felt, okay, I'm settled into the company, I feel like I belong here?
Yeah, we had a great crew there at the time. We were very close. There was a bunch of us that were all right around the same age, similar time on the job, and most of us lived on Staten Island and in the same neighborhood. We hung out a lot together. We did a lot of stuff together. It was a lot of fun going to work then, and we were busy, and it was hard to leave that. It was when the promotion came up, but I think we got into a good groove once like you said, getting used to the new company and the new type of work settled in a little bit. I probably wasn't there long enough to feel like, I definitely didn't feel like, oh, I got this. This is,
right,
a piece of cake. I was still on the up curve of learning the SOC world in this, May of 2004 when I got promoted. But I definitely felt like I felt like I was a part of the company, and I felt like I was there.
Yeah, I would say it's about a year until you feel comfortable, somewhat comfortable. Like, and they could throw, you're still learning, obviously, and it's not like you know everything. But if you've been drilling and doing what you're doing, you definitely start to feel more comfortable, obviously,
One thing I wanted to touch on too is that, Lou, you felt this when you got to 288, both as an officer and as a firefighter there. But really being in a squad, any of the squads throughout the city, there's 8 of them now with the addition of the squad on Staten Island. It really does feel like the world is your oyster because you have your first 2 area, but you have citywide. And at the drop of a hat, you can go anywhere. And being a young guy at the time, that's still learning and trying to be a sponge, I imagine that had to be your Camelot.
Coobs definitely never used that word.
Camelot.
There is no way. That's 2, Renaissance and Camelot. There's no way. I mean, it's very refreshing. It's better than the old dribble that I get out of that.
Use Coobs as a color backdrop or something like that.
Well, just like. Oh God, I love it.
Wait, sorry about that.
No. Mike, we've said it. I'm sure Andy feels the same way. It's like Disney World. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like Squad 1 is the one and only, right? It's they have the lowest runs to work ratio. You know what I mean?
I think it might have changed a little over the years with like they got second and third due engine boxes now and some different things. But when I was there, we were going.
You were going out the door. It was going to a fire.
The numbers we were doing like 1,900 runs a year, and we were going over 300 fires. Like all hands are better.
Yeah,
so
no,
it's like,
no doubt.
That's a pretty great ratio there.
And it was such a great neighborhood. I mean, forget about if you were single over there. Like, too bad you didn't buy any houses back then. You know what I mean? It's like, any buildings.
Yeah.
For God's sakes, holy shit. There's freaking buildings over there that are $5, $10, $20 million, right? Some of those brownstones or whatever the heck they got over there. Holy shit.
Oh, that whole neighborhood. Yeah. Even when I went to 131, a couple of guys, the real estate had already started on the upswing by the time I got there, but there were a couple of senior guys, 3 of them in the early 90s were going to chip in, I think, $5,000 each and buy a brownstone for $15,000. And
oh my God.
One of them talked the other 2 out of it at the last minute.
Didn't we had a few guests kind of talk about doing
it. There's been a few guys. Like I know 104, there was a guy who bought, there was like a whole row of vacants across the street. And I think they were brownstones. And he, knock on wood, hopefully he's still he's doing all right, fishing somewhere, playing golf somewhere, doing something. But yeah, it was always like those areas, like especially with the brownstones. I mean, goodness gracious, the architecture, like now you can't. Yeah. And that's one thing I say about like some of those areas in Brooklyn. There was a lot of good people, that, right? You would go to some buildings and there was a lot of good people, stuck in a crappy situation and they hung on. And, it's a good thing because, hopefully they got paid, you know what I mean? Because all the hipsters came into some of those areas and, they pay, now they're millions of dollars, some of those buildings.
Yeah.
They pay. Before you go further with Squad 1, I just realized we missed this picture from 231. Do you want to touch on this really quick before we...
Yeah,
we did the cat guns.
That's from, I think it was the summer of 2000. I was on the rotation in 231. And I figured Louis would get a kick out of this story. That's me on the bottom. On the bottom right, that's my back there. And
next to the chief with the white helmet there, is that you to the right?
Yes, yeah.
That's East New York. It's afternoon, early summer, and we were on another box, and then this comes in. So now Mike Polifrone is driving 231. He's driving about 150 miles an hour down Pitkin Avenue.
The skinnier the rig gets.
And I'm sitting, I got the nozzle. I'm sitting with my back to the officer, and opposite me in the jump seat is Mike Callan, who I think he's a battalion chief now, Mike. And we're flying. I'm trying to put my coat on while we get there, and while we're going down the roads, and we're hitting bumps and bouncing and all. I stick my arm in the sleeve of the coat, and I put my arm out the window so I could get my arm in the sleeve. The little slide window next to the backward seat.
Yeah.
So I stick my arm out the window, and right at that moment, Mike Polifrone must have swerved to go around a car or something, and he hits a street sign, like a no parking sign, and scrapes the whole side of the rig, and sparks were flying like they came in the window. Sparks that the whole. I had just pulled my arm in the window. I'm like
a split second
before. And now I'm like, I see the sparks go by. I look up at Mike Callan's face. His face is white and blank, staring at me. It's like I almost lost my arm on the way to the box. So we get there. If you're looking at this picture, the building on the left was the original fire building, and it's occupied. And the building on the right is Exposure 4, which was vacant. And 332 and 175 were first due. And 332 did the right thing. They stretched into the original fire building because it was occupied. So they went in there. So then us and 290 pull up right around the same time, and we both decide that we're entitled to have that line on the top floor of Exposure 4. So we both companies stretch 1 3/4 inches, and we both go into Exposure 4 on the top floor, and it's burned through the roof. The ceiling's mostly gone. We take the front. And I guess it was 2 apartments. We take the front apartment here and come back. We put out that room of fire in the front and then start hitting the fire that's above us in the cockloft. 290 must have done the same thing in the back. But now we're basically opposing each other with hand lines hitting this fire in the cockloft. And we were probably up there for about a half hour just pushing fire at each other.
You can't push fire.
Yeah, exactly. You can't push fire.
It got so much hot water built up on the floor. I was kneeling in it. I ended up burning my knees. And so now the fire's knocked down. And I tell the boss, who was covering office, I said, look, I got to get these pants off. My knees are burned. So he goes, all right, go down. I hand the nozzle off. I go out to the street. I'm about 100 feet away across the street, and they're hosing down that top floor. Now there's hundreds of people outside. There's cops, civilians, everyone. It's like a third alarm. And they open a line on one of those front windows, and a part of the window frame comes off. It's a 2x4, like 3 feet long. And it flies end over end across the street while I'm pushing my bunker pants down around my ankles, trying to get these pants off because they're burning my legs. And this
stop sign, 2x4.
Like an episode of the Three Stooges hits nothing but my head. And I go flying back. I never lost consciousness, but I was just completely knocked out with my bunker pants around my ankles. So now 120 is the fast truck. They come over and they pick me up. They stand me up. Are you all right? And I'm like, yeah. Okay, so now I got burns on my knees and my head cracked open.
Oh my God!
And anyway, they put me in the ambulance to send me to Kings County, and I'm in there with Jimmy Gersbeck from 290.
I love that guy.
He told me the story. He said, and we're laughing about the top floor and the hose lines, and he said it was his last tour in the engine because he had the order had come out. He was going across the floor to 103, but it hadn't taken effect yet, so it was his last tour in the engine. So we rode in the ambulance together to Kings County, and then a couple months go by. I'm back to work, and the bag comes, and there's an envelope in the bag for me with that picture and a note from
Gers.
Jimmy. Andy, I thought you might like this. Stay safe, Jimmy. It was nice.
Gers is like one of the most incredible chauffeurs. When I got there, he was in the truck already. I mean, that guy could drive that rig. My goodness, incredible, when you think back in your career too, like guys that really drove well. You know what I mean? Like like could drive fast but under control somehow.
Right, well, that's the key, combining the two.
There were guys who tried to drive like him who were out of control. You know what I mean? Like I always felt when he was driving, he was so in control. You know,
could
really,
tell those
and
guys
he's just great fucking guy, man. You know, Gers is a great guy. So.
Yeah.
But that's a funny story, dude.
I feel you'd like that one.
I love the opposing lines. Like, but listen, I mean, that's plenty of fire for everybody, boys, right?
Especially in that one. What
Oh,
a
shit.
story. And fully involved, too. That top floor is really going.
Yeah. It was,
Wait, Mike, you're going to be doing that in a couple of months.
Yeah, you're going to be up there doing it. Wait a minute.
God,
You're going to have a little dingleberry. You're going to be like, oh, my, you know.
I was stupid. I was up there doing it.
That brings us into the spring of 2004, and it's bittersweet because you're loving your time in Squad 1. You're back in Brooklyn, too, where you began your career, so that had to feel pretty sweet, too. But there comes a great opportunity that you did not pass up, and you ended up getting promoted to lieutenant. So covering for a year, that's a way to get your feet wet, but then comes the time when you go to 231 Engine. And what's interesting about that for you is that now it's a permanent assignment. And now there comes a second kind of rookie phase that as an officer, you're new, not as necessarily as a firefighter. So tell me about trying to prove yourself to a brand new crew as someone they could count on and look after their best interest.
Yeah, it's I was thrilled to be able to get back to 231. It's
How did that happen?
I tell people all the time, I think I had a lot of good things happen in my career, but a lot of the good things that did happen came from great captains who always looked out for me, you know. My first captain, Marty Ford, he made a phone call for me to get me to Squad 1. He was friends with the captain at the time, Bart Codd. And then when Bart Codd got promoted, Richie Portello became the captain of Squad 1. And, you know, he ended up becoming a great mentor and friend for me for my entire career, you know. So when I got promoted to lieutenant, you know, a lot of guys you saw going to getting promoted out of SOC, like the job wanted to put them, you know, in somewhere where they never worked before, like to, you know, move guys around and, you know, and I wanted to go to the 15th Division. I wanted to, you know, I still felt I was young on the job and I wanted to be as busy as possible to learn as much. And, you know, Richie Portello was able to make some, he called the Brooklyn Borough Commander, you know, he's never shy about anything, Richie. So, he called the Brooklyn Borough Commander at the time and pleaded a case where, you know, he said he was actually able to use my time on the job in my favor. He says, you know, he doesn't have that much time on the job. He could use some more experience. And whatever he said, it worked because I got assigned to the 15th. So that was good. And then I'm bouncing around. And, you know, I didn't mention when we talked about 231 before, you know, I was lucky to go down a rotation and thrilled. And the captain was Bobby Higgins at the time.
Oh,
and, you know,
legend.
It's just legendary captain, and I loved working for him, you know. And you know, in some ways he was the oldest guy in the fire because he was like everybody's grandfather. That's just the presence he had. But
really,
in other ways, in other ways, he was the youngest. We'd show up at hockey, you know, he'd change and he'd have a
great hockey player, right? Yeah,
biceps out to here, and on the ice he'd skate circles around anybody, you know. But so he was a great captain to work for. And it's a funny story. I'm bouncing around the 15th. You know, I worked in 290 and 103 a lot. I worked in a lot of the SOC support companies at the time because I was one of the few covering officers who had the training because I got promoted out of SOC. But so I was bouncing around for about a year, and I'm home on an off day, and my phone's ringing, and I'm getting out of the shower, dripping water, the towel, and I'm running for my phone. And he picks it up, and Andy, I said, yeah. And he goes, it's Bobby Higgins. And it didn't even register. No one calls him Bobby, you know. He's Cap, you know. It didn't even register in my head like Bobby. I'm like, hey, Bob, you know. And goes,
it's funny what you
Andy,
remember. It's funny what you remember.
Andy,
right?
you coming here? You coming to 231 to cover vacation? and wanted to see if you wanted to set up some 24s. I said, oh yeah. I didn't even know I was going to 231. The sequence hadn't come out yet, you know. So. Then it's like, you know, never called him Bob again, obviously. No.
Even now when you see him, he's not Bob.
No, but it's funny.
Bob.
I went there for a vacation, which turned into one of the guys had knee surgeries, one of the lieutenants, and I stayed there for like 5 or 6 months. Left for a week, and that's when 120's rig flipped over. And Larry Tompkins, who you had a couple of weeks ago,
Another guy.
was out for a while. And Captain Higgins talked to Captain John Calamari and said, Andy's back to the wind. Why don't you, if you need somebody in 120, and they got me in 120 for UFO until Larry came back, and then there was an opening in 231, and I wasn't sure if I
all timing, kid, right?
Yeah, better to be lucky than good.
Yeah, hell yeah, it's all timing.
And, I guess nobody gave it I don't know if maybe because I was on the rotation in 231, it was under the radar that I had worked there as a firefighter. But, I put in for it when it opened. Captain Higgins was kind enough to give me his endorsement, and it went through. Maybe because he's the guy who endorsed it, they pushed it through, and I went back. It's you could think, oh, you're going back as a lieutenant. Louis, you would know this, somewhere where you worked as a firefighter. But, most of the guys I worked with in the engine had gone across the floor, but there was still a good amount left. But it was never an issue, My regular chauffeur was Billy McLaughlin. They call him Poppy. He drove me. And the funny is, we got on the job almost around the same time, but he had like maybe 6 months or a year more than I did, and
so he called you a junior man?
Yeah, he's a gruff guy, and you would think like that's the guy who would give you a hard time as a lieutenant, that we were firefighters together,
Yeah, right. He's
And
got a little more
great.
time than you.
Right, and he could not have been better, It's like he'd come downstairs, guys, lieutenant wants to go out and drill, and he makes sure they're on the rig, and anything, what do you need, Lou? It's like
well, that place is really a special place. Like we talk about,
smaller guys.
There's a few firehouses, that stick out to me, like that. Really, they got great alumni, right? I mean, they have a lot of tradition. 231 and 120. You got 44 truck and 92. There's a lot of firehouses around that are good, but there's a few that just really stick out. And that's one of them. They have the battalion there forever. They got legendary chiefs there. So it's like, again, that type of place is Disney World. It kind of runs itself, right? The guys really police everybody. There's no shenanigans going on. There's no BS going on. If there is BS, it doesn't even get to the captain. It's taken care of by the senior guys, because there's a lot of senior guys usually there. It's not like, the senior man has, 12 years on the job in some places, unfortunately. So, that was one of those things. Somebody was asking if we, what year you got there, if we ran into each other. And I do remember running into you, but I think by that time, 2005, I was already in the truck. So I wasn't really competing with you anymore, but it was more Tompkins and Rob Brown and the Squid Man. I was always trying to get to the Squid, so but I love all those guys were great, man. I always loved like
it was such a great place to work. And like you said, Larry Tompkins, we would probably work together for maybe 3 years, and the office up there, there's a door between the engine and truck office, but it's never closed, so. And Larry, like, has very similar interests to me. Like, we'd be up till 1 o'clock in the morning every night talking about books we read or politics or, just anything and anything, It's like, it was, just one of those places where, there's always something.
A few times I worked in the truck over there, and Captain Higgins, I used to, like you said, you could talk right across from me. You just walk right through the door and you're in the office, obviously. And he used to talk about his son. I played hockey, so he used to talk about his son, right, playing. And, obviously later on he ended up getting drafted and, playing with the Canadians, I think, and the Rangers or whoever. And but the beep boop would go off, and that guy, again, like you would just running, like how many runs the engine would do on a night tour there, right? The truck would get saved a little bit, right, without the EMS, but. And he would come up,
first guy in the rig, and
I know he would throw the ticket on the thing, and same thing what we were doing over there too. But I just felt like I was 40 maybe, you know what I mean, 35 or whatever, and this guy was like 60, and like you said, he's got he looks like he's 100 pounds soaking wet. He's a short guy, but like you said, he was just running up and down, going on all these runs, and I always just had every time I saw him, he was always a gentleman and. Really special guy too, so you guys were lucky to have, some good officers over there too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Always great officers and great chiefs, it's,
chiefs too, right? I mean, incredible stuff. Good
I did
stuff,
want
right?
I did want to talk about this with you as well, Cap, and it's interesting regardless if it's a lieutenant or a captain in a truck or an engine. And this comes with time, the more time you gained as an officer, but your size up process, whether it be tenements, cocklofts, taxpayers, doesn't matter. There is that size up as soon as the run comes in. So tell me about learning how to hone that based off what you learned when going over books and what you learned from watching your officers over the years to measure up properly when it came to not only a box, but any kind of major emergency.
Nice job, too.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with trying to read the SIDS. That's always not that sometimes it's confusing or hard to read it. But I at least wanted that first line in my head. MD 6-story, 25 by 100, class 3. It's like, all right, we got a tenement. And in my mind, I'm like, all right, I'm in tenement mode. It's like going there. Or 20-story, class 1, NYCHA. You're in that mode already. And now that's the toolbox you grab. And now, you don't know what tools you're going to need yet, but you have that toolbox, tenement, brownstone, project building. So that's already a big leg up pulling up, just clicking your mind over to mode. That's why I always like putting in SIDS, even if there was nothing crazy about a building, at least put that first line of SIDS in there. That way.
You getting this, Michael?
Yes.
All right. Write it
So
down.
you give that heads up about what, it could get you thinking on the way there, and I think that goes a long way. As opposed to getting off the rig, not knowing anything and trying to play catch up. It's always,
Because you're going to skip stuff a lot of times because you're rushing.
Yeah. Got to have the same process, same approach, kind of a systematic thing.
God, you have the same thing, right? Does every building have SIDS down by you, or do you have to put the SIDS in?
we were a little behind the 8 ball, but we've made a lot of progress over the last couple of years with our pre-planned software that our inspectors do and that information that's in there. We were trying to get our dispatchers to do it, but it's a lot of information. I was involved with it a little bit, and I just want specific information that's going to give me information so I can plan my tactics. No standpipe, for example, kind of thing. Going to determine some stretches, sprinkler building, non-sprinkler building. Those kind of immediate information that's going to play into my tactics when I get arrival, kind of thing. I want to know those couple of things right off the bat. So trying to narrow that down, it was a challenge for us because there was so much shit that the Chiefs wanted to put on there. I mean, lack of a better term, but we're getting better at it. We didn't have it as fine-tuned. Yes, we copied the FDNY for the SIDS.
That was one good thing about our SIDS was you could only put so much characters in there, right? Like you had to abbreviate everything to the point where almost you didn't even know what the hell it was because you were abbreviating because you wanted to put so much on it.
Yeah.
But I guess it made sense not to put too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think more would have been better, but there were times where it's like you had to make a decision. What's more important?
Right, and abbreviate stuff down to down to 3 letters. You know what I mean? Like
that's to me, just give me a couple of 3 bullets. The most important.
That's it, right?
No, that's all I want to know.
No.
But like I said, before we had some chiefs, not to get on a soapbox, but one of our chiefs was he'd burn houses down. Every building in the city he's burned down 100 times. So as he's writing the SIDS reports, he was the one main guy doing our tactics specialist. He's giving novels because in his mind he's burned it down and he wants everybody to know. So it just becomes a little much. The intent was great, but like I said, you got to shorten it up a little bit.
Absolutely. And that segues into 2010, another interesting transition in your career. A dozen years on by this point, you get promoted to captain in February of that year, and you go down to 20 truck. Now, we talked earlier about going from Brooklyn to Staten Island and the change in mindset from borough to borough. Manhattan, same thing. And even though it's a little bit further in your career, a reason why I mentioned it's the same thing is because firefighting in every borough is different. It's not just the box alarms in Manhattan. It's every other emergency you can think of. That can happen. And of course, in a borough like that, where sometimes the calls are very unique. So tell me about first the good feeling of getting that promotion and then having to transition again to another house, another crew, and gaining their trust and respect.
Yeah. Manhattan was definitely a different world for me. Like you said, I did 2 ranks in Brooklyn. So in the interim, I had moved to Manhattan. I met my wife and when, I was living on Staten Island. She was living in Manhattan. So we got married and I moved to Manhattan. So, and I kind of always thought, that I had missed out on something having never really worked in Manhattan. So I wanted to experience it and give it a try and see some different things. So I think it was a natural fit to try and get into Manhattan. And I asked for the first division and I was lucky enough to get it. And not knowing anything about it, I really very soon came to love it. Loved working in the 1st Division. The chiefs, the division chiefs were all phenomenal the whole time I was there, from day one till the day I retired. Every single one of them. And even the aides in the 1st Division were great, and all the battalion chiefs were great. So, they made it an easy place to work as far as even administrative. You think there's a lot administratively, and there is sometimes, but definitely the chiefs understand that, and they work with you, and they know what they're talking about. I always felt comfortable that at jobs and operations that they knew what they were doing and had the experience for the situation. So getting to know the area, I bounced for about 2 years as a captain, and I had heard that the captain of 20 truck was on the list for battalion chief. I spoke with the division commander at the time, Jim Daly, and he agreed. He says, "Okay, 20 truck, I'll hold it out for you." He put me UFO in a Midtown engine, engine 26 for a while, but he kept his word. When 20 truck opened, he moved me down to 20, and I never looked back. It was probably, every stage of my career I loved, and everywhere I went, I loved the guys I worked with and the people I met along the way, and learned a lot from. But I think it's a very special time too. I'm very proud to have spent my last 11 years in 20 truck. I think it's like one of the best kept secrets on the job. It's a great crew. And we really went to a little bit of everything,
Where's that young guy that I remember seeing a little while ago? What the?
That one? We got that one now.
Wow. Tough paper out, kid. What happened?
Yeah.
Turn to the Washington Post.
That'll do it to you. There's no doubt about it.
Or the New York Times.
That's the other one.
How did you deal with before we talk about the guys in 20? How did you deal with the traffic? I always ask the guys, did that drive you out of your mind at all?
It's luckily like Midtown, doing that UFO stint in 26 engine, they probably have the worst. They're on 37th Street, which leads to the Lincoln Tunnel. And
oh my God,
from about 2 p.m. to about 8 p.m., Monday through Saturday, it's just a parking lot. It's 1 in 24, 54 and 4, those companies just, that's a whole other level. 20 truck, we were able to get around the neighborhood most of the time. There was sometimes, some traffic jams down by like Broome Street for the Holland Tunnel, or, there'd be a particular day or Broadway would be backed up. But most of the time we were able to get around. The worst, in Chinatown or Little Italy, if someone would double park, we couldn't get around them. That was frustrating. But the actual traffic itself, believe it or not, we having a tiller helped for sure.
I was going to say that's a tiller, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Tiller, right? Yeah,
definitely helped. You'd be surprised though. We were able to make turns that some engine companies couldn't make, even.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say, moving away from the emergencies for a second, just the neighborhood, Lafayette Street, one of the more unique neighborhoods, not just in Manhattan, but in the city. And it's often been said, the FDNY, greatest show on earth. FDNY's got a backstage pass. So in working in a neighborhood like that, what did you most enjoy just about the area alone?
I loved that almost everyone was interesting. It's like in Brooklyn, you get the fires, you get this and a little bit, but then you get a lot of routine runs that are, elevators and project buildings. It's like the same run over and over again, right? You go there, you shut the power, you pick the door, and it's like in 20, it's like all the, even the emergency runs, everything could be, you go to a loft building with an elevator in between floors and you got 12 people stuck and you got to get the top hatch and pull them up and, and you go to another run, you're in a loft and you got a movie star, or somebody, and then you go down to Chinatown and you got a 150-year-old tenement building that's never been renovated. And they have that, so it's like you have such a mix of everything.
Mm-hmm. And you spent the bulk of your career there. That was the longest stint that you had from 2012 up until the end in 2023. Rob Procaccini has a question in the chat that stands out, and I was going to ask you this, so you read my mind, Rob, in this regard. He says, what was the captain's most memorable job or run in Manhattan, either structure fire or anything else that stands out from that time?
This one right here is a very good
I mean, there's some
You had to have like a fifth alarm in Chinatown at some point down there. I mean, they have one or two a year down there, like
there's
whole
always some
building.
crazy ones. We call it the annual Chinatown. 8th alarm. There's always one a year usually. And there was a couple of those you had was just you're running around from building to building, apartment to apartment, coming in, changing your bottle, going back in. It's just because there's so many shafts and hidden voids and stuff, and half the battle in that area is finding the fire. It's most of the time in Brooklyn, the fire finds you. It's
they got subcellars over there.
A lot of subcellars. Yeah.
They do BI over there.
Well, they do BI. They need to do those things.
I mean, it's kind of funny story. It's a great Manhattan story. It was, I think, a 4th or 5th alarm going on. So we get relocated, and it's over by Chelsea. It's not, in any other borough, we would have been second due truck at it. But, here it's Chelsea, and we're not even on the 3rd alarm, so we're not on the 2nd alarm anyway. So we get relocated, and then we end up getting sent to the job. It's like a 5-story loft building when the top 2 floors are just fully involved in fire, burnt through the roof and everything. They're tower laddering it from the front, but it's got exposure 2, 3, and 4 are all taller buildings that high-rise buildings that butt right up against this thing. So they want to protect these buildings, obviously. So we get there and they send us to exposure 3. So we have to go on the other street behind it and come in this building that butts up against the back of it. And we go up there and we get up on the 5th floor, and the windows actually open, and it's an older high-rise building, and the windows slide open. And there's fire blowing up higher than the windows, because it's through the roof of this building, and we see fire all around. And now it's just us on this floor, with these 100-year-old single-pane giant windows keeping the fire from getting in this building. So I turned to my guys, and no one else is there yet. And I said, all right, stretch the house line from the stairwell, and we'll bring it in this area here, and we'll just protect this area in case one of these windows fails. So now we stretch the line, and there we're waiting. There's nothing to do. There's no fire in there yet. We give our reports. We're waiting. Now an engine company comes up. They hook up they got a 2.5 out of a standpipe of a different stairwell, and they're by one set of windows. And a chief comes up, and they open up. They slide one of the windows open, and they end up opening the line out the window to knock fire down that's burned through this roof. So now I'm standing there with this house line, and the rescue battalion chief that night was Jim Yakimovich. He shows up. He comes up and comes up on the floor, and he looks. He goes, "Andy, what are you guys doing?" I said, "Oh, Chief, we stretch this hose line here, but I'm kind of feeling left out." And I said, "I think we could put out a lot of fire in this corner here. No one else is hitting this side of the building. The tower ladders can't reach it, and that line's only hitting that side." He looks at it. He goes, "Yeah, go ahead." So I send the guy back to the outlet. We open up this house line. We slide the window open, and for about 40 minutes, there's 6 of us in the truck. All of us are up there. Chauffeur, all of us. We have a probie with us. We're like little kids taking turns, fighting over this nozzle. Masking up. One guy's holding your back. I think we were hitting fire better than anyone because we could turn that little hose around and get it underneath, like into the cock loft of this giant loft that was burning. And like a half hour, 40 minutes, finally a deputy comes up. Chief Yakimovich, he had gone to do something else. The deputy comes up. He goes, 20 truck. What the hell are you guys doing? So I felt like, remember in the Hansons and Slapshot, we're putting on the foil, coach, like, we're putting out fire, Chief, He goes, I'll give you a real
I'm listening to the song.
So he goes, I'll get you an actual hose line. So he gets an engine up there. They stretch, and they replace us. So now there's really nothing for us to do up there. He sends us down. We go back to the command post, and who was the chief of department at the time? I forget, but
Leonard. Was it Ed?
It was before Leonard, right before Leonard, and
not Sudnick, right?
Maybe it was Chief Sudnick, yeah. But it was
what year?
The wee hours of the morning, and he wasn't in his most chipper of moods, and he's by the command post, and I don't want to talk to him. I don't want,
I don't say nothing to any of those guys.
I'm standing there, but we had worked for a while up there, and Chief Yakimovich, he comes over again. Yeah, he says, Andy, what's going on? I said, no, they sent us down. He looks at me, he goes, you want to get out of here, don't you? I said, yeah. He goes, wait here. So he walks over, and now Chief Sudnick.
I got to get Yak on. I got to call Yak up. Get him on.
He whispers something in the Division Aid's ear, and I watched him take the magnet, 20 truck, move it off the thing, put it in the released units, and he turns, gives me the thumbs up, and we leave. And it's funny. My chauffeur, Chris Burke, he turns to me, he goes, Cap, how'd you do that? I said, what? He goes, we show up late, we put out fire, and then we leave early. Like I said, it's a squad training.
Part of the plan. It's all part of the plan, baby. We don't have to pick up the hose. We're out of here, man.
So, but that was what, it sticks out. Just funny things like that, and so many fires. You have to be reminded of something to think of a fire. You walk by a building or see it, and then you're reminded of it.
Did you have a lot of senior guys over there at that time? Did you have a lot of senior guys you can count on?
It was a good mix of guys when I got there. I want to say the senior guy when I first got there was Randy Regan, had about 20 years. There were a couple of guys, pre 9/11 guys for sure, and they were the senior guys. But then there was a block of guys who had got there in like 02 to 05, so like the heart of the company when I got there in 2012 had from like 8 to 12 years.
That's a good time. Yeah, those guys.
And most of them never left, so the whole time I was there, I had this great core of guys that, and they were just really professional always, and always did what we had to do in the firehouse. They were, always.
Chief Daly just said, Chief Daly, not to interrupt you, Andy was a great in 20 truck. He loved his company. He had a great crew of young, prideful firemen. They were a great company.
Yeah, it's like I said, Chief Daly was a great gentleman. He looked out for me, and he's exactly right with 20 truck. Just always professional, always drilling, always learning something, always into the job. Kept the rig squared away, kept the firehouse looking great. It was I can't say enough good things about the place.
I got to ask you, it's very rare that we have a guest on that was working during the height of the coronavirus pandemic. Not an easy year for anybody, especially for those on the front lines. So your 2020, how was 20 truck impacted by that? Were you guys in the heart of the storm, so to speak, or not hit as heavy in terms of responding right?
It was surreal. No, we were in a ghost town down there. Mm. We'd come in for whole 24s, and you look outside, and it's like the movie, the worst split movie. What's that?
It's like congestion pricing.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe
not
not.
Wrong.
I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know.
It was, the neighborhood was a complete ghost town. All the storefronts were locked up. It was surreal. Those first few months of the lockdown, there was really nothing going on down there.
Mm.
It was working whole, steady 24s with the same crew. It's you had to really stay on top of being motivated and taking the guys out. It was hard to get in buildings. Everything was locked up, but do your best you can. We had a couple of brand new probies and made the best of it. But trying to find restaurants to order food from to support the neighborhood wasn't easy. It was a crazy time. Yeah.
Were you still living in Manhattan at that time, or did you have?
Yeah, I'm still living in the same place. Yeah, Midtown.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
All right. Well,
fast forward, we get out of that. We get back into normalcy. Things kind of stable out a little bit, and I guess that brings us into June of 2023 when you called it a day after almost 25 years, just under 25 years. So I got to ask you, was it a series of moments, even without the pandemic, that made you say, "Okay, you know what? I've had my fun. Time to go," or was there one specific moment where it was light bulb going off over that, saying, "All right, I'm done. I've had my fun"?
No, it was exactly the opposite. Until the second I handed in my paper, I was this close to not doing it. I was. It was a real tough decision. I loved working. I could have done it more. It was tough. A lot of different reasons. I thought maybe it was time. But the kids are still young. With the family, we like to travel, and the schedule is always unpredictable with the fire department. So I think this was probably a good time to make that move, but it wasn't an easy decision. No.
I can imagine. You had a lot of you had a lot of fun. You had a lot of great houses that you worked in, and it's never easy to walk away. One thing that I guess we can touch on now is that in addition to your firefighting career, you've written 2 books. As Lou mentioned, the introduction of you, you are an author. So the first book is Finding John, which, Gons, if we could share the screen and highlight that and bring that up, that'd be great. Okay.
Here you go.
Finding John by yours truly, Captain Andrew Serra. So clearly, as you can tell by the cover, related to the September 11th, 2001 attacks. I'll let you tell the story on it.
Well, it's
not the whole story, not the whole story, a little bit.
Just enough so they go
buy the book.
Get the book.
Exactly.
They go out and get the book from Amazon,
Yes.
or you go for Andy's website.
Yes.
It's I've been writing for a while. It's always been a passion and a hobby of mine, writing. I actually put out a historical novel in 2012 was my first one. And people had asked me all along the way, said, "Oh, do you ever think about writing about 9/11 and what your experiences?" And I never really thought I could write about 9/11. Definitely I thought it was too soon. I didn't think I could really formulate the thoughts, and a number of things happened. And really the impetus for this book was getting back to 02 when I was with Squad 1. Like Louis said, doing the rotations down on the pile. They were sending SOC units down on a rotating basis 24 hours a day. We were on an overnight shift in March of 02 when I was with Squad 1. And while we were digging, we found the remains of firefighter John Tipping from Ladder 4. And it was a moment, I think it always stuck with me. It was just, I never met him in life, obviously, but I felt like just being there for that moment. And later in the morning, his dad, who was a retired firefighter, came and carried the stretcher out. And that moment always stuck with me. And, I know you guys touched on this story with Larry Tompkins a few weeks ago with Ladder 4. Later in 02, a story was published that 4 Truck had been looting jeans from the department store while the buildings were before the collapse, and while the buildings were collapsing, they were stealing jeans from the store. That was what they pulled up and decided to do rather than help people. And, like all firefighters at the time, I knew the story was a lie, and it just ate away at me for years, and everyone, the book got a lot of press at the time. There had been an article here or a story, some pushback on it, but I never really felt like those guys were fully vindicated, and years went by. And like I said, I always, was into writing always. And one day, it had to be about 2015 or 2016, I was sitting with my laptop and I said, you know what? I think enough time has gone by now. I'm just going to write one chapter and see what happens. And I sat down and I wrote all in one. I just banged out the first chapter.
Flowed right out.
I think I can do this. And so then I paused and I spent like the next year doing research, and I tracked down witnesses and physical evidence and written records of.
I didn't know that.
All I could find about 4 Truck. And, I learned a lot. The things that, people had known. It's not like I didn't uncover this truth. These truths were out there, but I wanted them all in one place, telling one story of who these guys were from 4 Truck. And I was, able to put the story together. Not only were they not looting jeans when they died, they were, they're one of the few companies that we actually know what they were doing. They were using a Hearst tool in the lobby of the South Tower to open up a jammed elevator car. They had rescued at least one woman for sure, and maybe even another. They had rescued from this stalled elevator. One had fallen. One had gotten out of the elevator, and then because the elevator wasn't lined up, she fell into the pit underneath.
No shit.
She fell like 12 feet, and there was fire because the jet fuel
was cooling. Yeah.
And members of Ladder 4, one of them was held by the ankles and lowered in and pulled her up. And she survived. She tells the story, and she remembers the 4 on their helmet, and she remembers a guy with blue eyes. It's probably Mike Lynch from 4 Truck. as they were taking her out and put her in the ambulance, the ambulance drove away, and then the South Tower collapsed. But they were still working on that elevator with that hearse tool when it came down. So they, heroes up until the last second of their lives. They gave everything. And
some schnook who wrote a fucking, an article.
It was terrible.
Wherever they got these information from, like to try and be,
I wanted the book to not just be 200 pages of me saying liar, liar, pants on fire. Right. I tried to get into, well, where did these accusations come from? They came from somewhere. And I tried to get into the story, and like you would know, Louis, like there were basically three groups down there, right? There's police, there's fire, and there's construction down there. And at various times, for the most part, it was cooperation, but there were heated moments, and there was, and the people who ran it on all sides had their own concerns and their own priorities, and I think part of that friction created an environment where some resentment grew, and some of these rumors. And the reporter who wrote the story of the looting of the jeans was embedded with the construction crew. So he's hearing their gripes, hearing they're annoyed because the firefighters keep slowing us down. They keep, so he's hearing their gripes. And that's where this rumor started to take hold, but as I showed, like there were no jeans found in the compartments of the rig. That was all nonsense. And, so I tried to put all of that evidence down in one place and hopefully, clear the air on their story.
Well, thank you for doing that, because to add context to it as well, it's worth noting every firefighter from Battalion 9, 4 truck, and 54 engine that went that day did not come back. Every one of them from all three companies perished. So what's even more horrible about that, not to dignify this person, not even to mention their name, is these guys aren't even alive to defend themselves. So I'm glad there was someone there to clear their name. Thank you.
And I can imagine the heartache of the families of losing your loved one. Yeah. But then 6 months, 8 months later, having to read in the paper that they're thieves, and just it's like the ultimate betrayal of duty to do something like that when people are dying and need help.
Yeah.
Right. What a disgusting thing, but thankfully some good came out of it with your book, and again, thank you for doing that.
Where is it for sale, Guns?
It is for sale on Amazon, and actually, let me do this.
How much? It's on sale. I saw it was on sale. These guys will like that.
Yeah, not free. Use some of the bitches you get off your wallet.
But the money from Finding John goes to a good cause. It's all the proceeds are going to the Ray Pfeiffer Foundation.
Nice. Yes.
So there you go. It's
$15. Get it up.
Bucks. Hey, definitely worth the investment.
Not your thing, but you get your wallet up.
And folks, that isn't the only book that he's written. Another one is on another historical event.
Brought my pipe out.
Yeah. 90 years before the tragedy of the World Trade Center in 2001, there was the tragedy of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire, which still, even though none of us were around for it, is a reference point for firefighting, not just in New York, but everywhere across the country. So tell me about doing a deep dive into this tragedy that stuck out from the 20th century, and of course, putting it into a book.
Well, when I retired, I figured I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to, starting as a writing project, and they say, oh, stick to what you know. And it's like, well, what do I know? And just coming off the heels of retiring, and I'm like, well, I know about Ladder 20, and that's such a unique area of the city, and the loft buildings and the history of them. And I'm like, well, how do I bring that into a story? And I definitely wanted to tell some of that story. And so I started from there. And then I'm like, well, what's one of the biggest events? You need some kind of hook of a story. And one of the biggest events in Ladder 20's history for sure was the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. They were the first truck on the scene at the job. And that's, it all grew from there. And I said, okay, well, how do I tell the story? Who were the people that were there? From the seamstresses in the building, the owners of the factory, what do they have going on? How did we get to this point? And to the firefighters, the members of Ladder 20, and even I found who very interesting was Chief Edward Croker. He was very interesting figure. Was almost mythical figure among firefighters nowadays. But even at the time, he was like this tabloid figure, well known. He was the authority on fires. He had grown. It's a funny story. Like, he had come. You would think he was like from this, like, the Tammany Hall cronyism, because his uncle was the boss of Tammany Hall, but he grew into a very respected, very professional, chief, and he was the chief of department for like 11 years, and right up and through the Triangle Fire. So I thought that was an important part of the story, like a very interesting. So I tried to just tie all these things together and tell the story of these lives. That the actual fire, and I include the details of that, but there's a lot of great books on that stuff. And I know you've had Chief Jonas on here.
I was just going to say, he did such a great job with that.
I spoke to Chief Jonas early on. He was very helpful, and gave me some great ideas to focus my research, because, he knows a lot about this fire, so I figured how I could maybe add something new to it was to highlight, the actual lives of the people who are intertwined in this tragedy.
Yeah. And they get forgotten, of course, unfortunately, because people tend to focus so much on the event, they forget, and they look at the number of casualties and forget that behind each casualty,
146, it almost becomes a statistic, as opposed to realizing it's 146 families that are devastated.
Yeah, exactly. But 146 people like lined up on the floor, like in front of you. When you just say 146, it doesn't seem like that much. But
same thing with 343, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Absolutely. So again, another thing I was glad that we were able to dive into with you. So 2 books, and there it is, of course, on Amazon. You can go and get it, and we can put the link in the chat too, so you guys can go and buy that. And of course, Finding John. Now, 2 books down. Any more to go? Any other projects you're interested in taking on?
I haven't really decided yet what the next project's going to be.
Authors need a break, Mike. You know what I mean? They need to.
I would know. Busy year putting this break. Together, so.
I'm sure he'll wait.
When that falls a little low, I need to write another book.
There you go.
Well, I'm only kidding.
Well,
I was only kidding.
I was only kidding.
Good stuff, Drew. Looks like you're doing all right in your retirement. We just got to keep waking up, right? Like we were saying.
Yeah, people say to me all the time, like, oh, there's good things about being retired and bad things about being retired, and I am enjoying the good things.
Oh yeah, man.
Schedule and able to spend time with the kids and work on my books, and and.
Nice to be home for Christmas, right? It's nice to
the first time in
the plays and
25 years, I didn't have to worry about which part of the Christmas holiday I'm missing, or if I'm going to be home.
Missing a play, right? Missing a play and all that stuff. So
would you retire at 45? 45. What would you retire?
I was 50 when I retired.
Okay. He looks younger than you, Gons.
8 more years to go, man. And I'm like, I'll be 60 when I go.
Well, as long as you're able to make that walk to the pension section, that's the most important thing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people.
Your mouth to God's ears, bro.
Just got to keep running. That's it. Just keep running. Don't walk. Run it. Run to whatever you got to do, man. Just get it done. Good stuff, Drew.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Cap, for your time. Any shout outs you have to anyone or anything?
Oh, hold on. Is it that time, God?
We forgot. How could I forget?
Wait, what time is it? What time is it? It's time for the old school tip of the day.
The floor is yours.
All right.
I'll give 2 quick tips. I was thinking the other day, I saw something written about a frozen hydrant, and something an old timer taught me one time. Whenever I had the control in the engine, I used to keep under my seat an old newspaper and a road flare. And if you're checking the hydrant and it's frozen, you can take the 4.5 cap off and stuff it with loosely rolled up newspaper. Just stuff it. Use the road flare and light the newspaper on fire. If the barrel is completely frozen, it's not going to help. But if just the turning mechanism on top is a little frozen, or the magnet won't drop because of some ice, just a quick 30 seconds of flames will loosen that up, and you'll be able to open the hydrant. And the second tip, I'll be a completely different turn is, for young guys, just remember that the firehouse, it's not just a bunch of coworkers, it's your family. And if you walk in the door every day with that attitude, I think you'll retire someday with 10,000 brothers and sisters and a lot of great memories.
I will
Lifelong
definitely keep
friends.
that-
That's for
keep
sure.
that in the memory bank.
Yeah,
So
for
thank you
sure.
very much.
Love it.
Listen, you got to work on Patello for me too. You know what I mean? Like
Um,
trying to get him. I don't know if it's going to happen or not.
He's got a lot of
swiggling
great
around.
stories and a lot of great knowledge to tell. Yeah.
to
Keep
touch on
swiggling
what
around.
just to touch on what you said, I think the FDNY has had a busy year with the throwing units. All kinds of shits all over YouTube with them now defrosting fire hydrants. I've been seeing it like crazy.
Are they really? I haven't even seen it. Are they really?
The whole little thing with the. I just happened to watch it the other day. I'm like, oh, look at that! They got obviously you have a special unit that goes out and from what I was showing on a couple of jobs going out.
I've seen guys use the road flares quite a bit. I remember seeing guys like when the couplings were locked up, they would put it near the exhaust and stuff like that. You know, like let the coupling sit there. But
I've seen guys take a
the
wall to it. I'm just
The
kidding.
road flares work pretty good.
Oh man! Oh well, that's great stuff. So
Nice job, boys. Nice job, Drew. I hope you get a lot
Thank
of
you
sales
guys. This has been great.
with
yeah,
the
you
books.
guys get off your wallet, gentlemen, ladies too. That are
We're going to put that in the description. It's in the description, like the description.
I put the names of the books in there, and I can add to it before we close tonight that they can get them at his website and on Amazon.
All right, cool.
So
Hopefully get a little push.
give a little push, you know.
And spend.
Spend. But we do have a quick little shout out for a little reminder of your Lancaster Fire Expo. It's still in May, 16th and 17th. This is your what do you call it? This is your
The Harrisburg Fire
Expo. That's right. I had to think.
Come out and see us May 16th and 17th. I wasn't partaking, but I know a guy with bow legs and who might have been a little out of his mind there, signing books and stuff, hats.
Well, last time, no.
Hey, down.
Allegedly.
We had a good time. Both his kids were there, his younger kids, and they did a great job, man. They were out there hustling, selling stuff. So
Nice.
yeah, we were chilling.
One quick last photo of Andy. Something you may want to share. Boom! Look at this guy.
Where the hell was that?
I found it on the internet earlier. I'm like, okay, I think you used it. Like, go ahead, Andy. I'll let you tell the story. I don't.
Yeah, that was. I was in the city with my wife, and we saw the graffiti wall, and she just called over to us. She said, "Hey," and snapped a picture, and we ended up using it for the book jacket for one of my other novels a couple of years ago.
Nice. I figured it was nice worth a little share because I was like, look at this thing.
Looks
like
very
the 70s.
Professional shot, right?
Yeah.
Looks like it's from the 70s or something. There's graffiti still? There's no graffiti anymore, is there?
I don't know. What do you call graffiti?
Well, these days, not to get too deep in the weeds. Yeah.
It's coming back, Mike?
There's not as much order in the 5 boroughs, let's just say. As there used to be.
Order, you say?
Yes.
Order.
No law for that much either. But that's another story for another day.
Yes. So.
All right, Drew. Thank you very much for coming on. We appreciate it. Great stories.
Thank you guys.
Great
It's been
career.
great.
Good luck with the books.
Yes.
Keep going. Keep writing. Kubla, nice job tonight filling in. I don't know. I think the guys in the chat were like, they're ready to take a vote. Coobs is out. Cologne is in.
Oh, boy.
Well done. Nice job as always.
Thank you. I guess you had John. I can't pronounce his last name. Gadius. That passed away. That's what Patty Lee said. Another brother was laid to rest today from 124.
We can highlight Mike Rapcavige's comment as well.
Oh,
today is the 35-year anniversary of firefighter John Devaney back in 1990, who was killed at a fire of 131 truck. Dan Potter had a good post about that. So he's.
I did see that actually.
Yeah,
I had that.
Yes. When I got there, it was about 9 years before, and we were just getting ready for the 10th anniversary when I was a probie, and sad story. It's
going fast.
Yep.
Time flies by. I read about it today again. One of the guys posting. He was on.
Chief Norman.
Charlie Megan was on overtime, so John had the seat, but he let Charlie drive because he was a senior man. So John had the OV.
Yeah. I think Chief Norman posted that. That's what I read it this morning. Yeah.
It certainly did.
Well, it's good that we got a lot of guys out there that are posting. At least social media ain't total cancer. You know what I mean? At least we got some stuff that reminds us, say a prayer and never forget.
Double-edged sword. There's good and bad.
Yeah, no doubt. Mm-hmm. All right, boys. I guess I will lead us. I will. Thursday we're not going to have a show. We got a show the following week.
We don't know what day yet. But you don't have anything scheduled as of right now. I know you're working on something, but
Oh,
as of we'll let
I
you
am
know.
working.
Monday
I think
or
I got it. Yeah, 10-4. All right.
So-
We'll see you at the big one, everybody. Thank you again, Cap.
Thank
All
you,
right.
guys.
All right, guys. I'm going to close out before Cologne, but remember, we're rolling heavy here in South Florida.
All right, so this one's a special one for my buddy Andy Wood. I promised him I would do this. Signal 75, I'm on scene. Signal 73, working fire.
Good night, everyone.
No,